Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CJ Miller Show. And my very special guest today is Magenta Pixie. She's back. She is the channel for the White Wing Collective of Nine. And Magenta and these guides, they bring in such beautiful information. And now we have the spring equinox. So it's just a beautiful time. And I want to welcome you back to the show. Thank you for being with us, Magenta.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you for inviting me back. And it's nice that we're chatting today and we can see each other because our last talk was audio only, wasn't it? So we're on
Yeah,
the camera today. That's good, isn't it?
it is exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so we spent a little time before talking about your situation, what you've been going through, and some things that we're going to talk about today. But, I just want to preface it with you've been doing a lot of things for a spring equinox, and I know you've been putting out some videos for this time. So I wanted to kind of start with, I think we had the equinox yesterday, actually. So this is a very powerful time, and I just want to start with talking about what people should be focusing on at this time. Of course, it's a time of renewal and finally releasing the old and what no longer serves, and making room for the new. But I'm curious about you and the nine, and what you have to say for the listeners today, and those who'll be listening in the future, about what we should be focusing on for this time period and how we should set ourselves up for our highest timeline.
Okay. Well, there's no should. That's the number
Okay,
one.
good point.
This is the thing, though, and it's so important. What is happening right now is there's so many challenges around. The energy is so intense, and we've got this huge, chaotic presentation in the third dimension going on everywhere. It's affecting everyone individually, and it's affecting the star seeds as well. The individuals who are aware and awake and who've been preparing this for years, they're not immune to this energy. They just have knowledge and tools to be able to assist them to ride through this energy. It doesn't mean that it's not going to affect them. So it's really important. Your question's great when you say, what should we be focusing on? Because the minute you start thinking, what should I be focusing on? You are taking yourself out of what you should be focusing on, which is your own alignment and where you are. So the nine came in to say that grounding is so important and relaxation is so important. The reason why those two are so important right now and at any time is because of this intensity and this challenge. If you get to the point, right, okay, so it's the equinox, this is really high energy day, this portal opening, we're going into this new world, golden age, etc. So I must make sure that I'm calm and I don't feel anything negative, and I go into meditation, do a bit of yoga, sit in front of my altar, hold a crystal. All of that is great. Yes, do that. But what happens when some friend out of the blue phones you in tears and says something that upsets you, and you lose your temper, and then you walk off and start crying? Then you're going to say to yourself, I failed my equinox sort of sabbatical, and I intended to be so pure, and it's all gone wrong. So you don't want to go there at all. It's about being yourself and being human, relaxing into being human, going with where you feel you need to go, going with your heart. Someone wrote to me and said, it's so difficult for me to be able to relax and ground myself because I've got to go to work to a job that I hate. Well, then what I would say to that person is, obviously there are a multitude of choices for that person. I mean, number one, they can look for another job, but that's easier said than done. I'm completely aware of that. So finding ways to get through that in whatever way is right for you. So it might be that you need to go and have a conversation with a very good friend. You might need to decide you're going to have a counselling session. You might need to go and see a holistic therapist, or go for a walk in the park, or have a sea salt bath, or go to the spa, or do some yoga, or whatever it may be. There is no should. It's what's right for you and what's happening in your reality. So what's coming up for you? we've got this global thing that's coming up for all of us, and that's going to be the same thing in many different ways. But we've got these individual things, like it might be your child needs you in a certain way, or it might be a book that you've read that you want to intensively study, or it might be a concept, or it could be UFOs or extraterrestrials, or it could be that you're focusing on health, or whatever it is. Go within and see where you are individually, see where the energy is globally, and find a way to sort of balance it. And there's no right or wrong, which is why the Nine brought forward a meditation stroke DNA activation, and
That's
also
great.
that's the river portal. But then there was also the Ostara blessing, which came through yesterday morning. As soon as I woke up, it was there, and it's quite a different format to how the channeling usually is, because I knew that this was DNA activation, but specific to this energy, with codes within the imagery. It's not so much the words, it's the codes within the imagery that is conjured up by you when you listen, that creates a pattern that will be unique to each listener. It's so subtle to actually say, what should we focus on, when everything is globally the same, and so very, very individual and subjective as well. So I would say, follow your heart, which I know is a cliche, but it is
That's
such good advice. And no, there's no shoulds. Don't think you should be doing something. Just go with the flow. And a lot of people did not necessarily, this isn't something I've been told, this is what we're on the 21st today, so I'm looking back into yesterday and the energy over the last few days. A lot of people experienced this equinox energy a few days prior to the 20th, around about the 16th, the 17th, the 18th and the 19th. And some may be experiencing it today or tomorrow. It's not necessarily going to be the 20th when there will be something that occurs for you, such as an epiphany or an experience or a synchronicity or whatever it may be, or just a nice feeling, or just for you to sit and say, oh, I had a really lovely day today. Whatever it may be, it's not necessarily going to be on the 20th. That's the highest point of the energy globally, but individually it's days before and days after, potentially right through till the end of March really is a high equinox energy.
Interesting. Well, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like when there's a full moon, it's a few days before the full moon, and a few days after that you're going to feel the effects.
Yes.
And I like what you said, and I've been, writing down some things. So it's grounding, relaxation, meditating, checking in with yourself, being human. Now, what does that mean to be human? Just to be okay with our human side, or accepting of ourselves?
Well, I guess the 9 would say connect with the organic human, which is the template of humanity as it was intended to be in its highest form within the third dimension. So this isn't a distortion of some chaotic, stressed human. This is a human that is working in alignment and in balance, and we're all at varying degrees of this, and we move in and out of this as well. So it's finding what that means to you, and again, it's subjective. I mean, the organic human is the human that is moving back into the crystalline template, raising the DNA and moving away from control and amnesia and forgetfulness into knowing and memory and reconstructing, the light body, the Merkaba and everything. But how that actually looks to you in your life is going to be subjective. You might be someone who feels, let's for example take yoga. I use that because I do yoga myself, so it works for me. So, and it's probably quite widespread yoga, but it can be anything. It can be any kind of movement or any kind of creativity. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just say it's yoga. Someone might feel that unless they've done their yoga that day, their yoga practice that day, that they don't feel in alignment. If they're walking
Mm-hmm.
around and haven't done a yoga practice and feel, oh, I've got to do my yoga, I'm not in alignment, then listen to that. That's telling you that yoga is bringing you into alignment and taking you to the place that is the organic human, which is the best version of yourself, if you like. It might be
Mm-hmm.
done through something completely different. You might decide that you feel terrible without makeup and your hair not done, so go and put makeup on and do your hair,
Mm-hmm.
and that might make you feel your best version of yourself. Whatever it may be, it could be anything. So just following what does that look like to you? If you were to visualize, if you could just wave a magic wand, what's the best version of me? Ideally, it would be you now, but
Mm-hmm.
that is something that we're all working with. So what does that look like? What does she or he look like? And then take steps to bring yourself into that person or bring that person into you, and do whatever it takes to get there. And don't be upset with yourself if it hasn't worked one day, because we all are going to get days where we feel like, I haven't achieved what I could, I haven't written as much as I could, I haven't worked as best as I could today, I should have done that creativity, I didn't, haven't done any exercise, because things happen that you are not going to necessarily plan. So you plan out your week and you think, I'm doing this, 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 and this in my week. And then things will happen that will change that original plan. And it's
Mm-hmm.
difficult for some people to move out of that original plan that they've created in their mind,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to stay within that, especially if it is right, I'm going to do this much creativity, this much meditation, this much exercise, I'm going to cook this much lovely food, and I'm going to go here or whatever, and then it all goes out the window because someone needs you,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to be there for them. So be aware that the mission is multi-layered, and that's you making your plan is only part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it is a subjective thing when it comes to the organic human,
Mm-hmm.
and how that will actually manifest in the third dimension.
It's interesting. It's been such an intense time of transformation for so many of us in this since 2012. It's been what a long, strange trip it's been, as the Grateful Dead would say. But I I just feel like it's been a journey for so many of us of coming to ourselves and learning to love ourselves. And I love what you say about, imagining your best self, and then what are the steps that we need to take to get there. Now, I I keep getting again and again, not just from you, but from so many spiritual teachers, that meditation is really important, and grounding as well. But here we are I'm in New York, you're in the UK. I heard it snowed there a few days ago. It's been a really long, cold winter for so many of us. And I think, here the spring comes and we just want to be outside. It was 12 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but I feel like so many of us are just itching to get outside. We're wanting to be grounding. But when there's snow on the ground, how do you stand with your bare feet? I even do it. I actually put my feet on the ground and go outside, and but it's easy for me because I'm a very hot person. But most of us, I think we're just so many of us, we're told to go outside and be in nature and connect with nature. But when it's so cold, it's, we're very shut in. And I feel that we're still, I don't know what you would say about this, but at least I've been in a very hermit type stage. And I think I'm still in that period for a time. So, so now I want to get to the question, because we were talking before the show about different healing journeys. And so many people that are going to be listening and watching this video are healers and light workers, obviously. And we all have healing abilities, and we all want to help humanity. And so many of us are service to others types. And so we were talking, and I don't know if we want to bring it up, but I know that you've had your own healing journey that is causing you to have to step back a little bit and really tune in and be accepting of your body and the limitations. I've also had my own emotional things that have really kind of pulled me back and are making me kind of, I don't know, it feels like, would you say, now this will be my question. Do you think so many of us now, Magenta, are coming to a time where we're like hitting a wall, where either like our physical body is causing us to slow down, or we're coming against insurmountable changes, or we don't like our job, or we're leaving our relationships, and it just seems like the old ways of doing things are really breaking down, and people are having to look at themselves in a different way. So, would you say that this healing journey is coming up for us as a collective in order to help us on our ascension path to let go of the limiting programs and beliefs?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's a global thing, but it presents in many, many different ways. So I've got someone here talking to me. It presents in many, many different ways that you know, when you say a healing journey, that doesn't necessarily explain what that means, because really it's about transformation. Really, it's about change, and that will involve healing, you know. But it's so very different for each person, and within groups of people and within cultures. But it's global. It's a global thing. Going back to what you were saying earlier about grounding, before I answered that question, I wanted to just touch on that.
Okay.
You were saying about it being really cold.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I would say, yes, you can go outside. You can stand in the snow with your feet and let your feet get freezing cold if that's what you want to do. But going outside in nature, while that is wonderful, you don't have to use that for grounding. There are other things that you can do. You can bring nature indoors. So you can bring, you know, plants indoors and have them around you. If you want to use the feet as grounding, you can stand on crystals. So you're going to get the same sort of energy that you would have if you were obviously barefoot on the natural earth is fantastic, really fantastic. But you can do this with crystals. They would be dark crystals. So you'd go for red, black, possibly even silver, but red and black would be good, and stand on them. So that's one way to do that. Then there's visualization. You can actually sit down cross-legged, go into meditation, and then in the meditation you are walking on the grass, standing bare feet. So there are many different ways of doing that. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that. But yes, being in nature is wonderful, but you know, you don't have to go outside. There are other ways to do that. And some people can't go outside. Some people are, you know, housebound. So they're going to have to find ways to ground themselves indoors. So you create a sacred space indoors. But when it comes to healing, the nine have said to me right from very early on, when they first started talking to me, really, all natural healers take a personal healing journey. Now, on one level, every single person is a natural healer. You know, it's natural when you are manifesting that organic human template. It's natural to be in service to others and be helping and healing others. Obviously, we've got many, many people who are blocked to that organic human template presentation, so they're not able to access that within them. So when we're talking about all natural healers, we would be looking at star seeds. They're the natural healers, and we've got some that are more within healing itself, such as hands-on healing, Reiki, energy work, or using nutrition or crystals or sport or whatever. But then we've also got spiritual teachers and channels that are bringing messages forward, who may not necessarily present as a healer, but they are still healing through the delivery of messages, the codes that are coming through. Yeah. So the star seeds are the natural healers, and all natural healers take a personal healing journey. So are all the star seeds taking a personal healing journey? Yes, but that will look again very differently. Some people it will be health, and it will be physical health of all various kinds. Others it will be emotional, or it will be trauma issues. It could be past life healing. But there'll be something personal to every starseed. They might not necessarily have seen it as healing. For example, you might find somebody who's never ever had a health issue, or never ever considered themselves to have ever needed healing. But that person might be a musician and been playing the piano since they were 3. They've been healing themselves without knowing it, through the music or through the art or through the dance or whatever it may be. So yes, it's there because it's part of the journey, but
Hmm.
it manifests in different ways for each person.
That's a really good point, and I like that idea of, if you're playing music, if you're a musician, that you're actually getting your own healing, sure, through the vibrations of the music, and
Yeah.
it just feels like I know so many people who've been, my best friend died about a year and a half ago, and she was a major healer and psychic and astrologer and doing radio shows and a real light worker. And I just, I never thought she would go. She said she was going to go when she was in her 40s. This is a friend that she'd been a friend of mine for 30 years. So I knew she said she was going to leave, but still, when people leave, it's kind of shocking, even if we're
Yeah.
ready for them to go. And I guess I just feel like there's a lot of us who are, looking into our past lives and seeing what our purpose is and understanding our multidimensional selves. And even myself, I feel like I have a really big job to do here, and I want to help humanity, and I want to stay till the end, till the really, and it's upsetting to me when people are leaving. And I guess there's a part of me that's really attached to the human form. And I know, here we are, we're human beings, and we love each other, and we do miss each other. And I guess I'm just, when things can seem so hard and so chaotic at times, and a lot of people are focusing on the negative and being overwhelmed by that, just wondering how we can, other than meditating and talking to our friends and doing all these good things, I think that for some reason, when people hear information that resonates with them, like you're saying, these messengers are healers. And so you are, obviously, people listening to you, they get a great sense of healing. And so I'm so excited to be sharing you with our listeners today. But there's certain things that have been in my head, and so I'm just going to assume that my ideas are ones that other people might have too. Certain things that I've been thinking about that, like, just I can't let go of, and it kind of hurts my heart. And I've been letting go of this heart hurt, but I guess I'd like to bring it up because you said that sometimes people have physical issues, but for me, it's been more of an emotional issue. And I've just gone through a breakup recently. And, it was so upsetting to me because this was my twin soul. Or at least that's what I believe. This was my twin soul. And so I talked to somebody this weekend, and they said, well, that is your twin soul, but you have another twin soul that you're going to be meeting. And so that really blew me away. I'm like, we can have more than one twin soul? And, there's all this stuff that you talk about with the twin flame and the coming together, divine masculine, feminine. It seems like that's really the thing that so many of us are looking for now, our divine partner, and wanting to join together, to merge with another, to fulfill our mission. So what can you and the Nine say about that, about the twin soul dynamic? And can you have more than one twin soul?
The answer is yes and no. I've got a whole chapter about this in my last book, Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template, because it's such a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole chapter about this that goes into this very deeply, channeled from the Nine, about this subject. So firstly, sorry to hear that, that you've had a breakup. It's not easy, I know. And maybe when we finish doing this, recording, we can have a chat afterwards, because there's so many, I can do a reading for you on air if you want, but I don't know if you'd want me to, but just to touch on that, there's so many different potentials for someone who's gone through a breakup. So, for example, take you, example, and look at the timelines. So there'd be a timeline where you get back together. There's be a timeline where you don't, a timeline where you never see that person again, a timeline where you stay really good friends. There's a timeline where you meet someone else. There's all these different potentials and possibilities. Mm-hmm. Anything that's in your mind as a potential as long as it isn't being clung to with desperation, because when you cling to a timeline with desperation, you block it from manifesting. When you are open to all these different flows, then you have many, many potentials and possibilities. The universe generates repeated matches to match your frequency. So when it comes to a twin soul or a twin flame, on one level, when you are looking at the overall plan of your life and you're looking at destiny, then there is only one, because the timeline that you go through and the destiny that you live is the reality you experience, and within that there's only one. You know, let's say you're in a monogamous relationship. There are different types of twin flames in multi relationships and polygamy and all that, but that's different. But
Sure.
but that twin flame energy is there too. So say you are, with one person, the twin flame energetic that you manifest in your life, that you live in your life, that becomes your destined partner, is the one true twin flame, because that person, if you are achieving the highest vibratory state that you can, and you're living your blueprint and your mission, then the person that you draw into your life will be a match to that, because the one true twin flame is your higher self. It is you. It is not anyone else. Your true twin flame is you. And when you manifest that within the physical reality, you manifest a match to you. So that's why that person becomes the twin flame. Now, if you decide that you don't want to be with this person, and you think this person can't be my twin flame because for whatever reason he doesn't understand me, or he doesn't believe in this and I do, or whatever that may be, you might decide to walk away from a potential twin flame relationship. If you walk away from the twin flame relationship yourself without giving that relationship perhaps the chance to manifest its twin flame energy, it might be more of a challenge for you, depending on where you are. It might be more of a challenge for you to generate a new twin flame into your life. If that person left you and you were open and wanting to connect with that twin flame, you're going to find it easier to manifest the new twin flame into your life, because you've stayed within the twin flame energy.
Okay.
But again, this isn't going to be in every single case, which is why in my book there's a whole chapter on this, because it's very much about how you are feeling. For example, if you believe that there's only one twin flame for you, only one, and that's your partner, and there's no one else, and anyone else that you have a relationship with is going to be a sort of second best because your twin soul is that one person, then you narrow the universal energy generator, if you like, generating constant matches to you. You narrow it down into one person. So the idea is to open it up and know that that higher self that is the true twin flame that is you can create a match, and that match could go in many, many places, in many, many ways, constantly generating that. And the only way to stay open to that path is to know it is there, to be fully aware and open that there are many twin flames, and on one level everyone is your twin flame and everyone matches your higher self. To take this multi-leveled viewpoint and then find this joy in your heart, the kind of joy you would experience if you just fell in love with someone. So what would you feel like if you just met someone and you just fallen in love? Imagine you've been seeing someone for 2 weeks, those early days, and you're sat there and like, oh my goodness, it's like I can't eat. I'm so excited. I'm so in love with this person. Yeah. If you can find that energy and bring it, even if you just sit there and hold that energy for half an hour a day, you are taking yourself into a vibratory match to falling in love. When it comes to the twin flame, there's a geometry to this as well. And this is a really, really good way of working out whether your relationship is a twin flame relationship or not. The Vesica Pisces, which is the circle with the inner sort of little fish in the middle. Yeah. It's not just a geometry for twin flames. It's a geometry for many, many things. It's the Holy Trinity. It's, the male, female, the child, and all this. But when you're looking at a twin flame relationship, you would see the female and the male, And this doesn't necessarily mean a heterosexual relationship. This can be homosexual relationships as well, because you have male and female energy, and some people who are perhaps gender neutral don't even use the words male and female, and they don't have to. They can use different words. They can use matter and antimatter. They can use you could use god and goddess, which is kind of male and female, but there are many ways. It just shows an opposing matching frequency, like positive and negative, I guess, but not in the sense of service to others and service to self. That's, there are many, many ways to describe this polarity. So let's go with male and female, masculine and feminine. So we've got the circle for the female and the circle for the male. And then the middle bit where they overlap is the creation between the two of them. So that can be a child. Obviously, on a physical level, the creation between the male and female energy on a physical level is a child, but that doesn't have to be a child. It can be a creation of any kind. So that may be that you're writing a book together, or you're doing talks together, or you're traveling together and you are learning as you travel, or goodness me, it can be, look at the relationship you have and think, well, are we creating? And don't necessarily look at the obvious. As I said, it doesn't have to be a tangible thing, as in we've created this clay sculpture between us, therefore we are mirroring the twin flame. It might not be anything tangible. It could be an idea. But is there creation there? If there is, you will know. And if there is, then your relationship is mirroring the Vesica Pisces. That's the sacred geometry that fits the twin flame frequency. And what is so interesting here is there are people who don't even know that they're with their twin flame, because the twin flame manifests in many ways as a potential before it is actually tangible. It manifests as a potential. So, I saw so many clients. I was, doing readings for 7 years, and I would say twin flame questions was probably one of the highest, next to what planet am I from? The next question was, who's my twin flame? These are the biggest questions people asked. And I had many people come to me who felt that they were in relationships that weren't mirroring their twin, the twin soul, the twin flame. And sometimes they were right, that the relationships were not. But in other cases, and in quite a few cases, people were in a twin flame potential relationship and they didn't realize that they were. And it was only through our conversations and their meditations and their communications that we worked together to discover that they were with that twin flame potential. So you can actually be with someone for 10 years and think, well, I love this person and we get on great and there is a spiritual connection between us, but I don't necessarily think we're twin flames. Maybe I'm not meant to meet my twin flame. And it might be in year 11, a whole series of synchronicities occur and you think, my goodness, I was with my twin flame the whole time. So this is, the twin flame is a manifestation of a creative relationship. And yes, there's one on a destiny level, but there are many timelines. So if you're looking at your reality as one destiny, then if you are manifesting the highest potential of you, then you're going to manifest that match, and that match is going to be your twin flame, and you will have these synchronicities and these connections, and you will know that this is a magical spiritual relationship that's meant to be, and you'll be creative. Now, when you open up to other timelines, on one level, there are loads of timelines around you where you're with the same person. So this is the twin flame, because there's a convergence. The 9 call this a node point. So when you meet that person that's a twin flame, you're sitting on a node point because that person's a destiny, because it's in all timelines. That's one frequency to look at. But there are other ways of looking at the different timelines and the different dimensions. Another way of looking at this is to see all these different timelines, and there is a different twin flame in each one, and each one has within it the Vesica Pisces manifestation. So that's why the answer is yes and no. And the way to get this is to know it, because if you think to yourself, there is only one twin flame, that's the truth, then that's the only reality you're going to be able to manifest for yourself. That's what I'm saying about the universe closing in. If you truly believe there's only one twin flame, then that's the reality that you are going to experience. So you're going to experience looking for that destined partner. And if you get together with that destined partner and that destined partner feels completely differently, as is his or her free will, and that destined partner chooses to leave you, then you are left with no twin flame because you believe there's only one and it's the person who's just left you. But you haven't opened yourself up to the other perspective. And the other perspective is there are many, many twin flames. The universe generates for me the match to myself. Therefore, this twin flame, it hasn't worked out. Therefore, there will be another. And then there are also many cases where twin flames split up and get back together again. And it happens over and over. There is so much complexity. So, I do apologize for whenever I get asked a question, I go on and on and on. But there is so much to say about this subject. But as I said, in Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template, not trying to plug my book or anything, but
it's a great book.
There is a whole chapter. Oh, I was going to say, if you've got it. Okay, well, if the I think it's part 2. If you have a look.
Okay.
I think it was the name of part 2, or is it part 3? Just trying to think.
I have to look in the front part of the book.
There'll be a list of the
introduction.
section.
Then there's all these different chapters. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah.
So number 2 or
Number
3.
2. Oh, yeah, here it is. Twin Flame Perspectives and the Vertical Pillar of Light.
Okay, so
Chapter
read
2. Okay.
Twin Flame Perspectives. If you read that.
Okay, let's see.
And it goes into in great depth about this whole concept of destiny and the multiple timelines, and gives examples as well. So this may assist you in your personal journey here right now.
Thank you so much. And, it's I don't read books that much anymore, so I tend to listen to everything. And a friend of mine, my friend Belinda, who's a big fan of yours too, she's like, oh, I would love it if Magenta would do an audio version.
I will. So, I've been asked by so many people, and I think audiobooks are huge now, and I've only just started getting into them myself because I couldn't really listen to a book, and I've just finally been able to relax and listen to a book instead of wanting to read it. I will do the audiobooks. They are on my to-do list.
I know it would take a while, but you have such a great voice too, and people love your voice. But I'm looking at this, and there is a lot of information, and I think this will be helpful to me.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, thank you. And, it's funny because I heard about the twin flame, twin soul thing, I guess it was 7 years ago for the first time. And it was, maybe I'd been hearing it on YouTube, but I had this reading with this one psychic and who was great. And she told me that I was married at the time. She said, you have a twin soul, excuse me, and you're going to be meeting him, and you had lifetimes together, and you're supposed to be coming together to to write, and you have, ancient knowledge to share. And her timing was a little off. She said, I'd be meeting him in a few months. Well, it took a few years before. And I think that he was the one. I'm not really sure now. I mean, I feel like he was, but is there a way that we can come together in that twin flame where we're creative and we're in that beautiful energy, and then other dramas happen and that pull us away from that creative place?
Absolutely. Okay. This is the challenge. I mean, you can be with a twin flame and you can one day know this person's my twin flame because there's synchronicity and there's creativity and there's magic and there's love and there's romance. And a week later you can be, I can't stand this person. Don't want to be with them anymore. I mean, we're human. You were saying earlier, you said your words were, I'm very attached to the human form. And you kind of said it slightly as though it might be something perhaps that you need to work on, but part of you thought it was okay. And I think that's something that a lot of people think, that being attached to the human form is a negative thing, and we need to sort of transcend it and become pure light. And nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, we're becoming pure light, and we are pure light, but we are absolutely attached to the human form. So it's great to be attached to the human form. And in that, there's going to be times when you are in the third dimension, the two of you at the same time, and there isn't any higher connection going on. The idea here is how do you go through this? Well, do you have a point where the two of you have got into some kind of altercation or argument? I know in America you call it having a fight, which
Yeah.
we think is so funny in the UK, because if you're having a fight in the UK, you are literally sort of punching each other. We have an argument or a row. We wouldn't have a fight.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
actually
It's
find that so
cute.
funny that Americans say fight. But say you're in that situation, how do you go through this? And this is the challenge, you see. If you were
Hmm.
sailing through on a bubble of bliss and romance day in, day out, where are the challenges within your relationship? Why
Hmm.
did you incarnate into the physical form? You incarnated here to
Hmm.
learn, to remember that you are separate, and now you're going back into unity. And all of these different situations in your life are assisting you with that learning. And so if you were to float through in a 24/7 romance, there is no stimulation there. You are in pure and utter bliss, which, yes, is absolutely the goal and it's attainable. But in human form, the idea is, if you are in an argument or having a fight, how do you go through that process?
Hmm.
Do you just think, that's it, right, we're going to break up? Now, maybe that's right. If that's been something that's been occurring again and again, and you are constantly feeling brought down, drained, feeling unhappy, happier when you're away from your partner, feeling frightened and scared and controlled and all of those things, then that's not a creative relationship. That's a destructive one, and it's the implosion or the inversion of the Vesica Pisces. And that is a draining, consuming energy, and you will have entities around that are feeding on that consuming energy. Turn that around and think, okay, we've just had this huge fallout. Then you sit down and you talk, and one partner talks about how they feel and the other partner talks about they feel, and somewhere they come together, and somewhere they learn from that altercation that they had, or that period where they didn't speak for a few days, or whatever happened. They learn from it and they grow and they become closer together and they get back into creativity. I would say now that one of the greatest tools to getting through these relationship hiccups is humor. If you have humor between you, and you can laugh, and you can, bring it back to humor, even if there's something you don't agree on and it seemed really serious at the time. If there's humor there, this can help you greatly to get through. If you're coming back to creativity, and if you look back at the overall relationship, and this is something that women, the incarnated female, or the female mind, whether that's in a female form or a male form, the female mind can look at the whole picture of the relationship and see the whole relationship and think, well, overall, this relationship is actually great because there's humor and there's creativity. And even though we've had these little blips, overall, this is a really great relationship. With the male mind, very difficult for them to do this. They're in the moment with the relationship. They don't often, I'm not speaking generally for every single male. There are some males that are fully capable of looking at the whole relationship, and sometimes it's reversed. But generally, the most predominant males will think, how am I feeling right now? I don't like this person I'm with. I'm feeling terrible. And they will go with that and sometimes take that feeling. So one would wait until you've both come back to this balanced point, and then able to view, what have we learned from this and what have we gained from this? And another book I can tell you about, which I think changed my life when it came to relationships, is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by
Oh
John
yeah.
Gray.
Yeah.
I can't recommend that book enough. It's probably not necessarily enough for a very expanded thinking starseed that's activated and multidimensional, because you are going to be looking at multiple timelines and probabilities. But there's a lot of metaphor within that book, and those metaphors are very helpful. But for someone who is struggling with relationships and looking at the differences between the male and female mind and the way that plays out, that book is fantastic. Changed my life when I read it, because my realization was, oh, so men are different to women then. The whole time I'm looking for someone, I'm believing that my one true twin flame is a match to me, therefore he's going to be like me.
Sure.
And while that's true on one level, there's going to be a like energy. If you're a female and you're moving into a relationship with a male on that level, whether, as I said, whether you're heterosexual or not, it's an opposing energetic. So you're in a relationship with someone who is not going to be like you. That person couldn't be more opposite than you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's learning about the differences and the similarities at the same time. And that book is a very, very good introduction or stepping stone into the understanding of the differences between those polarities.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The book by John Gray, I mean, that was from the 90s, I think, that book came out. And I read it, and he wrote a couple of other ones like
Yeah.
that. So I should probably reread those. You know, it's funny because I mean, I didn't mean to get into this, and I know we can talk about it after, but, you know, I think that things can happen where you can meet somebody, and even if he's a man, he can be very in touch with his feminine side, as my partner is still, I think he is, my ex-partner, which feels weird to call him my ex now because it's pretty new. And I think it was him that wanted it, even though I ended up calling it off just because it was like an ego. It just became, you know, when you feel like a disconnect, then you have to let go. And so that's what I've done. And I just, you know, I've gone through the difficult period of the crying and the releasing, and now I'm finally regaining myself. But I guess that's what I came to an understanding of. So I love the way you put it out there about the twin flame thing. And I totally agree with that. Whatever we're believing, then our thoughts are co-creating with the universe. And so I do believe that if I'm meant to be creating with someone, then I will. And I know that I'm that type of person. And I think we all like to be part of community and have partnership and merge with others. And we're not here to be alone, you know. So, and at the same time, I think it's really important for us right now in our development to learn to, if our issue was that we didn't want to be alone, and we're afraid to be alone, then maybe we're going to be forced to be alone for a time so that we can face our fears,
Yes.
right? So that's what it feels like is happening. Because actually for me, I've always believed that I would have a partner, but I have been through so many relationships. I mean, I've been married once, but you know, I guess there's a part of me, it's probably a program. I do believe it's a program, especially as a woman, that, oh, I need to have a man, I need to have a partner, and especially, you know, to grow old with, and, you know, and I think I'm starting to let go of that program.
Yeah, that program is there
Hmm.
within the female, and it's indoctrinated into us when we're little girls. You know, we go to play school and we dress up with the veil on our head and we get married,
Yeah.
and you know, we grow up. And it's in our mind as, you know, the girl's biggest day is the day she marries, and this prince in shining armor is going to come into her life. And we're very, you know,
Hmm.
romantically oriented as a female. And females can be very, very, they can often identify with themselves through their man or through their relationship.
Hmm.
But the program, as you say, needs to be released, and we need to learn as women to identify with ourselves and our own inner divine merge, the male female within us, and go through the divine marriage, which is ourselves. And we need to find
Hmm.
ways to empower ourselves in the way that many women are looking for empowerment through the male. Many of the males, and I'm talking about third dimensional males and females, you
Hmm.
know, at the moment, they aren't equipped to give each other the what everyone's looking for, because what we're looking for is unification and unity with source. And so that isn't
Hmm.
going to be found within a third dimensional structure anyway. We're always going to be looking and lacking because we haven't got the unity. We have to race through the dimensions to find that, especially now with the shift on this planet. So, yeah.
Mm. Yeah,
So,
it's, you know, so everything is all imperfect. I feel like even if we're going through hard times, when we look at the bigger picture, we could see the reason for everything. Even if the relationship was not something that you wanted to end, you know, hindsight is 2020. We can always look back later and go, oh,
yeah.
well, it happened for a reason. Everything happened for the highest good of all concerned. And for me, that always helps me. Like with anything that's going on, the stuff with our country, the United States, and things happening in South Korea and Donald Trump, and I have to look at it and say everything's happening for the highest good of all involved, and it just not to let myself get so upset. But if we do get upset, that's okay.
Yeah, and that's again, it's understandable and quite normal. We're very invested, especially people in America are very invested in their communities and family and their emotions, and probably they portray that more so than certainly we do in the UK. I'm more like, I feel, the American people in the way I am with my emotions, but I'm a fish out of water in a lot of ways here in the UK. The
Mm,
UK, we're not so much like that, but it's normal to do that, to be caught up in this, especially the whole political thing, because we take it personally as part of our personal reality, and it is. So we have to learn to balance this. So I see how difficult that is for so many people, especially with the presentation of Donald Trump and how he presents, because how he presents, if you're only seeing that, then you are going to be really, really emotionally triggered.
hmm
You have to look behind the scenes and think, well, why is he presenting like that? And what's going on behind the scenes that I'm not looking at? What am I not seeing? When you start to see the behind the scenes stuff, then you realize, then you can see that everything's playing out in the way that it should.
hmm
And it's not always easy, even for people who are constantly in contact with the higher dimensions or with ETs or connecting to their higher self. It's not always easy for those people either, because we're still living the tangible third dimensional reality.
hmm
And this is why you said earlier about meditation being so good, because it will connect you in. And even if you are not actively in verbal communication or clairvoyant communication or even emotional feeling communication, it will still connect you in the way that you're able to connect through whatever means. So meditation will take you into that point where you can view reality as everything's happening as it's meant to be. Because on the third dimension, it does look like chaos, and it is chaotic. It is chaos. Everything is coming out. All these things are coming out all at once that are triggering people left, right, and center. I mean, I know
hmm
people, third dimensional people, who are, they don't understand the reality they're living in at all. It's almost like this world is completely unrecognizable, and I simply don't know how to survive in it anymore. And then they'll talk to their friends, and their friends don't know either.
hmm
Everyone, the consensus, certainly over here in the UK, is like the world's gone crazy, and it has, in that, from that perspective. But
hmm
when we key in to what you were saying about everything's happening for the highest good, and we're looking at the sort of deeper levels behind everything, the way to get to that, there are many ways to get to that, but one way, one really good way, is meditation.
hmm hmm I as I was listening to you and repeat the thing that I said about everything happening for the highest good, I was just reminded of the times when I'm not able to be in that place. It's usually thinking about
Yeah,
my ex-husband and fear about my kid, or
yeah,
and so I think it's almost easier for me to be like politically or globally. I'm like, it's all going to be fine, because I try not to watch the news or read the news or listen to people when they talk about things. Oh, there's another school shooting. I don't want to. I mean,
yeah,
I know in this community of light workers, there's all the truthers, and I have gone through my period of being really into that, and now I'm sort of at a time when I'm not paying attention as much, just because I get so sucked in, and then I feel sad and I feel kind of depressed. I'm like, well, what's the point, So I think it's so important for me, at least, and I think a lot of us, to hold on to that, like to just relax and not get so worried, because our worries are not going to help anything. They're not going to help manifest the life of our dreams and unity consciousness and unconditional love, right?
uh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, goodness, you couldn't say it better. What I will say, though, is the indigo energy you know, you were talking about coming in
Hmm.
with programs. I mean, some of these programs are incredibly positive for us to be able to live the mission that we're here to live. The indigo energy comes in with the program of, I need to know the truth. I will uncover the truth no matter what it takes. And if I have to just wade on in there and shout and scream and write things on my profile and get into debates and arguments with people, I'm doing it because I'm uncovering the truth and I'm going to tell the world what I know. That is a vibratory frequency within the indigo. Now, that can go into a negative because we can have people that become incredibly challenging and so difficult to be around because they appear to be just so negative, and everything comes back to this awful hard done by energy that they are exuding. But when you flip that to the positive, then you have people who are taking action and are uncovering the truth, and they are, in a balanced way,
Hmm.
they are presenting the truth for us. And the uncovering of truth is a massive part of this shift. It's the third dimensional part of the ascension process,
Hmm.
and that the nine repeatedly call this the indigo revolution. You know,
Cool.
it is a revolution, and it's
Hmm.
a revolution of that indigo energy. And there are the crystal individuals who are going to be, I don't really want to be part of that. And they're very much like, I agree with that philosophy. I'd like to know the truth too, but I want to be over here with the healing and the crystals, and I want to sort of, you know, find a way through challenges, and I want to heal the world in a different way. That's the crystal energy. And many of us have come in with a very high vibration of the crystal energy. Many of us have come in with the indigo energy, and then there are other frequencies as well. And we're all kind of working together.
Hmm.
So there are some people who are going to be news watchers. They will probably, if they have opened up to discovering truth, they're probably not going to be watching too much mainstream news. They will probably
Hmm.
be boycotting it and be following the alternative news sites. So, you know, I'm very much, for me, I'm very much in the spiritual side of things, obviously bringing forward messages from the nine. That's where I am presenting with my mission, but I'm an indigo, a full indigo. So I've got that side of me that has to
Hmm.
know the truth. And sometimes I will go into my truther side, and I can lose myself a little bit and go out of balance because I'm like, right, I can't believe that's happened. What can I do? You know, and the nine will then speak to me and say, thank goodness that I have the nine, because if I didn't, I probably would be a really annoying truther. I'd be shouting. I'd be Mrs. Alex Jones, I reckon. I'd be banging my fist. So, you know, no, not insulting him. I think what he does
He's great.
is
Yeah.
great. I mean, you know, there's a place for that, and a very important place for that. But I have the nine, so they come in and they'll talk to me and they'll say, okay, let's look at this on this level, and how do you feel, and then let's go here. And they take me into what I would call remote viewing, and take me
Mm.
into different frequencies, and I see and feel what's behind everything, and that helps me to deal with everything, because I
Hmm.
can see not just this time, but what's going to occur down into these future timelines. So it's like the service to self groups, they work with a chess game. They work several steps ahead, like 7 steps ahead. Think, if we do this, that will
Hmm.
happen, and that. And then there's all these unwitting people that are falling for their little traps, and then bang, they've got them. That's how it's been for thousands and thousands of years. But it's not happening anymore,
Ooh.
because now we've got these starseeds that are also playing chess, and they're also 7 steps ahead. So the minute that the, you know, Illuminati cabal, whatever, take step one, you've got all these truthers and intuitive individuals that are thinking, I know what they're trying to do, and they're able to kind of jump ahead and see what they're doing. So
Hmm.
that's the indigo revolution. So it's really important that if you feel that you are someone who needs to uncover truth, and you are researching on every atrocity that occurs on this planet, and you are wanting to find out the truth behind it, then that's because you have that indigo frequency, and that's part of your mission. You have got a very crystal indigo balance. You've got
Mm.
two, you know, presenting
Cool.
to me very sort of 50-50. And if anything, your crystal energy is just slightly more so, but that's only now because of you've recently been through something. So your crystal energy is coming in a little bit more to bring healing down.
Ah,
But predominantly you're a
right.
50-50 energy.
Hmm.
Whereas I'm 100% indigo. I've had to work very hard with the nine to access that crystal energy, which we can all find. You know, we incarnate with one particular program or code or color frequency within that aura, code within the matrix, all the same thing. And then we learn to take on other colors and other codes and other frequencies. We're all really children of the rainbow. We're all
Yeah.
able to embrace all of these different frequencies and use them
Mm.
to access the mission that we're here to access.
That's great. I love what you just said, and you bringing it back to the rainbow and the rainbow frequency. It's interesting because dating back to that reading I had years ago about my twin soul, I was told that I was working with the Blue Ray with Archangel Michael, and that I also was a member of the Rainbow Tribe, and then I was supposed to be speaking for, and so I don't. I guess that does that mean like is the rainbow thing all the diversity of all the types coming together, or what does that mean
The
actually? I mean,
rainbow is a metaphor for so many things. So, yes, it's the diversity of the different frequencies that you embody. It's also the chakra system.
mm,
So, if you look at a rainbow as being individual colors and look at the chakras as individual separate chakras, moving up through the rainbow or embracing the rainbow is actually looking at the chakras as one energy center rather than separate. But we would always see them as separate as well. Within the third dimension, we're seeing separate chakra energy centers. In the higher dimensions, we're seeing a unity. But it's also the DNA. The
mm,
DNA itself is a code, a color code, the inner rainbow. You then have the rainbow bridge. The rainbow is one of the most aligned metaphors, and it's part of the language of light. The nine call these different presentations alphabetical numerals. Well, they didn't really call them that. They showed me a frequency that was an alphabet and a number merged together.
mm,
And so I thought, well, how am I going to? There's no word for alphabet, for letter and number merged together that I know of. So I said alphabetical numeral, and they said, yeah, that's the most aligned. Well, I guess there's no such word as alphabetical in the actual dictionary, so it's a made-up word really by me as I'm trying to translate what they're saying. But the rainbow is one of the most powerful and one of the highest and most aligned. So it's there. It shows many things: creativity, different streams of creativity, different streams of language, different streams of culture, the dimensions themselves, different musical tones, different energy signatures, but also the DNA, the rainbow bridge, the transformation, the chakras, and the different planetary systems that we embrace as well, the different extraterrestrial aspects of us, the past lives. The rainbow is, if you look at a rainbow, it's one thing. It's just one thing like this,
yeah.
and yet within it are all these different streams of color. So it's many things and one thing at once. So it's complete, infinite compartmentalization inside a unified field. So the
Mm,
rainbow is a perfect symbol for reality and creation itself. So yeah,
it's
rainbows
beautiful.
love.
I love rainbows.
Yeah.
It's we're coming along so nicely here. I just want to keep track of the time. I do have. I wanted to ask about ascension, but I think I'd like to get to this question that I mentioned I had about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So let me look this up. So this question comes from Alexandra. I have something. What does the nine have to say about the AI, artificial intelligence situation, and the 5G grid that's going to be covering the Earth soon? This all scares me more than anything, and I am feeling like I could use some help in understanding this less.
5G grid Is that
Yes.
I
I think she's
okay.
talking about cell phone thing. I don't know. I wasn't
Oh
sure.
yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wondered what the 5G. I thought, is that, does she mean 5D? Yeah, 5G grid.
Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's interesting because I'm currently writing my third book at the moment, and the recent channeling that's just come through is all about AI.
Oh, cool.
So try and remember what they said, because it was um well, then I'm going into the story about how AI was created in the first place, but I mean that's very complex, so I won't go into that. But let me just say that, like everything, whether they're extraterrestrials or humans or people presenting with different vibrations, like everything, we have a positive polarization and a negative polarization within that. So let's for example say, let's pick the Sirius. Let's pick the Sirian extraterrestrials.
Okay.
On Sirius, as a planet or a planetary group, a group of planets, a planetary system, we're going to have some positively polarized entities and some negatively polarized entities. Let's take Earth. Here, within humanity, we have positively polarized entities and negatively polarized entities. The exact same is there within AI. Within artificial intelligence. Now, I know that it does appear to be a predominantly negatively polarized presentation. I presume when your questioner asks about AI, that they are talking about the advanced artificial intelligence beings. I know she's mentioned 5G, so that's kind of a connected but slightly different topic. So I'll come to that. But the artificial intelligence beings, what we're hearing the most about is the negative sort of side of things. And yes, it's real, and there is a potential concern, and there are individuals working magically on this planet to create a timeline where artificial intelligence is very much part of our control, and it's kind of filtering in now. That is all true. We can go further to say that the actual matrix structure itself of reality has been hijacked by, if you like, a false program or an artificial intelligence. But the original structure is an organic structure. So we've got this organic matrix and this inverted matrix. It's the same with the beings that present. Within this, there are some positively polarized beings that one could say were artificial intelligence. What the Nine was saying to me is, we as humans have evolved from we've evolved down several streams, but if we look at the original evolution on this planet as to the life force that the DNA was put into, or that the DNA was engineered, we'd be looking at the hominid, the ape type creature. That's where we kind of evolved from. It's not the absolute seed. There were two different types, but it's that kind of. But if I was to say, if I was to look at humanity and say, oh, they're all apes, well, we're not. We're nothing like them. So we could say to one particular planetary system where the DNA structure or the DNA engineering was created within originally an artificial intelligence structure, and we could say, well, they're all artificial intelligence, but they're not. And they would actually say to you, that's an insult for you to call me AI, because they've evolved beyond, just like we've evolved beyond being apes and hominid creatures, the original hominid creature, they've evolved beyond AI, and they look quite similar to humans. Some of them, not all of them. Others are typically AI and haven't done any evolving. And within AI, we have AI and organic structures combined. So you've got some life forms that are partly artificial intelligence and partly organic. So within this, there is positive and negative. So I can understand why people are afraid of that, because there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and how it's controlling us, and it's the inverted matrix, and that's all true. There is a huge negative faction within that, with it coming in from these different ET, ultra dimensional forms, fourth dimensional forms. Yes, that's been very much part of our control structure, but there's a positive side as well. And if we do look at AI on a whole and just categorize it all as negative, we're again just putting all our eggs into one basket and not opening up to the bigger picture. There are entities out there that would have originally been seeded from AI or have AI within them that are positively polarized as well. So that's opening up that a little bit more. The 4G, the 5G that they're bringing in, I can understand why she's concerned, because especially within the starseed communities, there are many, many individuals that are extremely sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. I'm one of them. And so we're having to find ways to shield ourselves and make sure that we don't become affected or become sick by these frequencies. And at the moment, it's not too difficult. If we do our research and follow our intuition, we can think, well, do I go for that particular medical diagnostic tool that the doctor says I must have, when that diagnostic tool contains EMF frequencies that potentially are going to harm me anyway? Do I go for the diagnostic tool or not? You have to decide what you do. Shall I go and see a holistic therapist instead? Shall I not use this mobile phone because it's the latest one and it's fantastic and really expensive, but it's blasting EMF signatures at me when I'm using it? Shall I go for a cheaper, older mobile phone, cell phone, because that one's not going to affect me? I'm saying these things because I've been through all this myself. I've sent 3 cell phones back recently because I can't even look at the screen, let alone have them by my ear. So I have to go for a very low budget handset. I finally found one in the end, which, it sort of crashes every 5 minutes, but I cannot use the flagship models. I simply can't look at them. And the same with a car. Just before Christmas, I bought a new car. 4 days, I had to send it back. I was so ill with the EMF because of the electric relatively new cars. So then I had to do sort of a month's worth of research to find where can I find a car that's reliable but is older, blah blah blah. And I did manage to do that and find one that I can drive without nearly falling over when I get out and feeling so dizzy and sick. And so that's just me, but that's. And this isn't just amongst the starseed communities either. There are people who wouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be awake that are also extremely EMF sensitive. So 5G is a worry for people like myself, and I know that there are many. And as you see, it's a bit of a flip side to being psychic. You open up clairvoyantly, you start to look at unseen energies and feel the vibrations of different life forms. And within that, you're going to take into your matrix, if you like, these EMF frequencies as well. So we have to learn to filter them out and only let in certain ones. That's fine if you're sitting in your own bedroom with orgonite everywhere and your crystals, but if you're walking down the street, or if you're actually driving the car or using the phone or living next to a cell phone mast, then the most highly trained psychic is probably going to have problems filtering out and that's 4G. So 5G is a concern. But what I am getting here from the 9 is 5G is not going to take off in exactly the way that they think it will. There's going to be it will occur. 5G will be a network, but it's not going to be as easy as the cabal groups that are creating all this think it will be. There's a lot of opposition now to structures that create harmful, dirty electricity and EMF and AI and everything. So there's almost as though there's 2 threads going. There's one where they're powering ahead with this AI transhumanism timeline, and then there's this organic starseed, organic technology timeline as well. And they're sort of both working parallel. And it's difficult to see what will play out at the moment, because we have to have the 9 say eyes on the prize, which is we have to view the timeline that we want to manifest. And it
Mm-hmm.
may well be that this whole two world split thing, which is very, very evident, the 5D and the 3D worlds, it may be that this will manifest within the physical reality where you've got people that are fully enmeshed within this AI world where they're going further and further into, robotics and augmented reality and, fully
Mm-hmm.
hooked into the 5G without having any um, actual felt negative responses to being around that much of EMF frequencies. And then you've got this other world of individuals that are working in a very different way using their own inner organic technology.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what's happening. We're playing out these two different worlds right now, and they're both superimposing into the third dimension. I can understand why this person is afraid. I really can. And there's nothing wrong with fear per se, because fear is letting you know that something isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
So your questioner, Alexandra, her fear is letting her know that something's not right. Her intuition is telling her something's not right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's great that she felt that. The aim now is to work through the fear so that it doesn't consume her, so that she can't function in reality, and to look at the timeline in front of her and think, well, what is it that I want to manifest in my reality? And find a way to view how she sees. I was saying earlier about looking at the best version of yourself. Well, look at the
Mm-hmm.
best version of your life, of your reality. What is it you want to see for your existence and for the existence of your grandchildren and your great grandchildren? If we as starseeds can get our eyes on the prize on that same timeline, which is the organic timeline, and whether that AI is superimposed within the physical reality or not isn't an issue if we are manifesting a timeline where that is very, very different, where we're working with our organic psychic technology, because we live in another dimension. And this is the whole
Mm-hmm.
3D, 5D superimposed worlds. So it's easy for us to see them as two worlds. It's the third dimensional world and the fifth dimensional world. It's the third dimensional world that contains the AI control. It doesn't exist within the fifth dimensional world. It's not there. That is an organic structure. But they are superimposed together. We are existing within a physical world that we see tangibly, where they're both there. But we can choose not to have that brought into our reality so that it affects us. But we have to be very careful not to shut it out and reject it, because that can actually draw it in. So it's finding that very fine balance. And it's not an easy place to find. But the starseeds, the 9 tell me, have all the tools available to be able to manifest this very tricky place. Once you've done it, you can get there again. And the place I'm talking about is to not reject the AI control presence to the point where we're in resistance to it so that we draw it in. Mm-hmm. So we embrace it. We embrace it and accept it. But our focus is within the organic technology. It is within the ascension timeline. It is within the freedom and the liberty for humanity and for this planet. It is within the galactic society and the coming together of the like-minded, extraterrestrial, ultra-dimensional beings that we are at the moment becoming one with. It's keeping our mind and our sight on that timeline, but still being aware that AI is part of our reality, and finding a way to perhaps get that indigo side where I'm not going to let this happen to me or to my family or to my starseed family, however big you want to go. So you've got this indigo getting your boundaries in. If you're in fear, fear is fine when it's there as a signpost for you to integrate. But if you stay in fear, I'm afraid of AI, I'm afraid of 5G, I'm really afraid, and you stay there and you stay there and you stay there and you don't integrate, that potentially is drawing that into your reality. But you get like a time period. It's not like if you feel fear for 3 days, tough, too late, you've drawn AI in and something bad's going to happen. It isn't like that. You get a training ground, and the higher dimensional guidance system, which is your own organic matrix and your DNA structure, knows what you are doing and knows whether you are equipped or not to be able to integrate that fear. So even if your intention is to integrate fear, so I would say to someone like Alexandra to actually say today to the matrix, to the guides, my intention is to integrate this fear. I'm afraid right now and I'm feeling fear, but my intention is to integrate it. Just voicing that, you change the frequency of fear itself. So you aren't manifesting the match to fear, you will manifest a match to I'm intending to integrate fear. So life is then the integration of fear. So it just takes one statement to change the frequency. Because if you remember that on a fifth dimensional presentation, the guides, the gods, the angels are listening to you. They hear everything you say. That's one way of saying this. If you want to go to a more truthful metaphor beyond the 5D form into the sixth dimension, the matrix, the DNA structure, the organic structure within you, the chemicals within your body are in communication within you, with you and with one another. That's the brain, the mind, that knows what you are thinking, because every thought you have creates a reaction physiologically. So you can look at it that way as well, which is the same thing as saying the gods are listening to you. It's the same thing. So if you make that statement, my intention is to integrate this fear. Please help me. You know, that in itself becomes a chemical change within the body, and it starts to work. I know it's easier said than done, but you have time to do it. It doesn't have to be done in 1 day or 24 hours. We have time to go through this. The idea is, are you in a state of growth? Are you moving through evolution and integration? Or are you stagnant and staying in the same place? Well, look at the starseeds. None of the starseeds are stagnant and staying in the same place. They might do for 2 days, maybe even 2 weeks, possibly even 6 months. But at the moment, it's not even 6 months. At the moment, things are very rapid. Starseeds are not staying in the same place. They're moving every day. So I hope that's kind of explained a little bit about AI per se and how we can deal with our fears of it. But how it actually manifests within those two worlds, the 3D, the 5D, and the timelines, this is up to us as to how we focus on knowing. Because we can experience different timelines. Different humans will experience a different timeline, a different reality than others. So we choose, do we want to stay in 3D? Do we want to be in 5D? And remember not to reject 3D or to reject 5D, but to embrace both of them, even while we're choosing to be. The thing is, with the starseeds, they don't even need to choose the fifth dimensional world. They're already in it. I mean, they were born to be in the 5D reality. They were born to be in the 5D world. They were born to create it. So they had a link to that from birth. So the starseeds, I can understand why people are afraid of this, absolutely, especially with the whole 5G thing. But it's not going to work out the way that the elite think it will. Nothing is working out the way that they think it will. Nothing. I mean, every single plot that they have, there's a spanner, or is it a spoke? Something's being put in, the wheel. Do you know, it's stopping that wheel from running. Is it the spanner in the works or the spoke in the wheel? It's probably those two.
Spoke in the wheel.
I get my little sayings muddled up. I do, but that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And it's happening with everything. And you only have to look around and see the plans and the plots that they're trying to achieve, and everything is going wrong and backfiring on them. So 5G, yes, it's going to be part of reality, but it isn't going to be quite the way that they think it will. And there will be ways that we can not draw that into our reality. There's another way of looking at this as well. There's a whole other AI. There's the whole voice to skull technology,
Mm-hmm.
the voice of God, which is a big thing at the moment in the spiritual communities. Because I read
Mm-hmm.
something the other day. Somebody was saying that a lot of the QHHT um, the QHHT sessions,
Mm-hmm.
when those people in hypnosis connect into the higher self, I read that there are people that are believing that those people in that somnambulistic hypnotic state are being targeted by voice to skull technology and the voice of God technology. And what I would say is you have to be careful, because it's very easy to turn that into a cabal tool and say everyone who's been through a QHHT session and every channel and every psychic out there they're all targeted by voice to God, which completely dismisses everything that we are all saying. And that's not the case. Now, it may well be the case that some people who are opening up are connecting into that, but that AI, that sort of mind control voice to skull technology, is a very low dense vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain code, I've spoken to the Nine about this greatly, there's a certain code within the pineal gland structure that when the crystalline structure within the pineal gland
Mm-hmm.
activates, and there's a certain uh, chemical which is probably DMT or very, very close
Mm-hmm.
to DMT in its structure. When that connects with this crystalline structure, it creates a kind of an antenna, and this goes above the frequency of the voice to God technology, the voice to skull technology. It's a low dense vibration that is targeting, if you were to sort of give it a place within the human body, it would be targeting perhaps the spine, the back of the shoulders, the back of the neck.
Mm-hmm.
It's not targeting the way that the antenna moves through the pineal gland activation. So anyone who is genuinely working with spiritual enlightenment, spiritual tools, spiritual discipline, then they are highly unlikely that the voice to skull technology will ever come anywhere near them. That they create an immunity. So, but I've actually looked at the QHHT sessions through remote viewing and through astral projection, and from what I can see, um, anyone who anyone who is with a genuine trained QHHT practitioner or genuine trained hypnotherapist working with a somnambulistic state have protective tools in place that will assist that person to be able to go into a connective state, a somnambulistic, deep hypnotic state, and they are not being targeted by this technology. If you're to find a hypnotist who hasn't perhaps had the training, and you've got a client who perhaps hasn't activated those chemicals within the pineal gland, then yes, they may be susceptible. But does that mean that every hypnosis practitioner, every hypnosis subject out there, and all the channels and all the psychics are all being targeted? Absolutely not. No. So it's
Mm-hmm.
having, what I would say is you must use discernment here and go with your intuition when you
Mm-hmm.
hear any message, because also even the genuine hypnotic subjects that are genuinely speaking to their higher self, even the genuine messages can be a mixture of metaphor and what is literal, and there's still an interpretation, even though the interpretation is filtered greatly because you are speaking to pure essence, pure source aspect of that person, that even then metaphor can be presented rather than what is literal. So it's looking at all these different layers, and everything you read, everything you hear, use discernment and use your own connection in whatever way you can, whether that's a psychic connection or whether it's channeling or whether it's meditation. Trust your own inner intuition above all things.
Mm-hmm. I think that's great advice. And, I've definitely been coming more into tune with myself and realizing that, just noticing what that little voice is, discerning between the voice of the ego and the voice of the higher self. Sometimes I think can be hard if we want something that maybe is not in our best interest. that we can, can be hard to listen to the voice of spirit or higher self.
Yes, and I think part of the path is often to ignore it a few times, and then when you discover that inner knowing or that inner voice was right all along, then you think, I think I'm going to listen to this in the future. So that seems to also be very much part of the path of intuition. I mean, to be honest, the starseeds really don't have anything to worry about. But having said that, it's not a good idea for starseeds to just sit there and think, well, I've got nothing to worry about. I'm a starseed, so just do nothing. Then that takes you out of the vibration. If you are active, taking action, your eyes are open, you are aware, you are analyzing your waking reality, you are analyzing your sleep state, and amongst all that work, you are grounding yourself and taking time to relax as well, get that balance, then you are on the right track. And you see, an individual starseed on their own, on a planet full of non-starseeds, may have something to worry about because they are alone. They'd have to keep themselves hidden, which is what we've all done. But starseeds together are the most powerful force on this planet at the moment. When they are together. So coming together, we don't actually have to all gather together in the same building. We can do this via the internet, and that is another way that a cabal plot backfired. The internet originally was created to be a categorization control tool, and it still is that, but what else is it? It's a connection tool for us.
Yeah.
And it's been our greatest tool in this movement. That's why everything is so quick, because we can get information out so quickly through social media. And social media, again, is another whole subject. We've got issues going on there that are negative and there that are positive too. Again, use discernment. And, if it would be nice perhaps if when one social media platform becomes really negative, we all need to know when to leave that social media platform and go together to another one. Because who controls the social media platforms? It is not the people who created the platform, it's us, the people. But we can only control social media platforms when we do it together. It's no good like 20 people leaving one platform and going over here. We all have to do it. And that become part of something we have to do at some point. So stay aware and work with your intuition regarding the way that we're communicating online. We will always find a way to come together. The nines say whenever a front door closes, the back door opens, and we find a back door and a way in. Our networking won't be closed off, even if they shut the internet down. If they shut the internet down, they would then harm themselves as well as us, because there are certain things that they're using the internet for. So it wouldn't be in their best interests to close down the internet. But yes, the AI is a problem on the one hand. On the other hand, it can be very, very helpful for some things. And it has a positive and a negative side to it. So it's all down to us. It's all down to our own personal discernment and intuition at the end of the day.
Well, it's this became a very big subject.
It's a huge subject.
It's really big, and I mean, I'm just trying to keep track because we could keep going down this road and take a long time with it. But what I've been noticing is just how much artificial intelligence is coming into advertisements. My daughter and I moved back in with my father, and so he has television and cable TV. So sometimes we are watching regular TV with commercials. And during the Olympics, they had a commercial where this boy looked like he was using telekinetic force to get things. It turns out it was a Toyota commercial for a robot that was getting the little boy these items, and I was like, wow, so that's actually something that they have available. And then even commercials for phones now. There was a commercial for like upgrading your phone, and they showed it like through the ages. And in the future, they showed the people as just being holographic projections talking to robots about their upgrade. And the
Yeah,
robot's like, yeah, didn't you get it already? So I know that they use this to kind of create a reality. Is it a reality portal, or because we're all
it is.
creating the future, right? So,
Yeah. Because they've lost the ability to create the timelines for Earth in the way that they did. The service to self structures have been creating the reality portals and the timelines
mhm.
for Earth. And now the starseeds have taken that over,
Yay.
fairly recently. But the starseeds are still, if you like, they're new at this. They've got all the tools they need, but they're new at this. So we're
Mhm.
learning together how to create these timelines. And so the service to self groups are using the old methods that they had, and they're bringing in even more and more methods, because the mind control techniques that they've used before are not working. So it's very much sort of AI and augmented reality type of stuff that they are using now to bring in the creation of the timelines through the control of the people, because it was always the people. The service to self group couldn't control the timelines on their own. They had to get the people's minds involved, and so the people were unwittingly creating the
Mhm.
timelines through the brainwashing that they weren't aware of.
Right.
The more aware we become, then we move away from being one of the individuals that they can use to control the timelines. And when we become aware,
Mhm.
then our thought processes is becoming bigger. So it's becoming bigger than the rest of the population that are still sleeping and still being controlled. So they are desperately trying to cling on to that control that they once had. And it's, well, for a while we've been kind of, 50-50, but right now, where we are right now, the starseeds have the edge, but they're new. They're new at it. They're beginners.
Mhm.
So they're learning how to do this, and that's why we have the guidance system, the plugged in matrix. That's why we were given the fail safe crystalline program within our upgraded DNA, so that we would all have the memories and the knowings. So we're all helping one another, and a great deal of creative starseeds. Each one of them has a piece of the puzzle. Each one of them has a piece of the puzzle. It's coming in so many different ways: music, art, all over. So
Mhm.
we are learning, and we are, from what I can see from the nine, we're actually doing really, really well. As I've said before, we are doing really, really well. And sometimes it doesn't seem that way. On a physical level, we can think, gosh, are we really doing well? Somebody asked me the other day, how do we know that this whole 5D structure, this fifth dimension,
Mhm.
isn't yet another program that
Mhm.
the cabal, that the service to self have put in place? My answer to that is, on a third dimensional level, we don't know. We don't
Mhm.
have any proof of that. We need to go above the third dimension to get the answer to that. We need to go into the fifth dimension ourselves. Only when we've touched the fifth dimension ourselves can we actually know that this isn't a cabal controlled program, because we feel the fifth dimension and we know what is going on there, because we become part of that dimension. The person in the third dimension who's asked that question could then say, well, you're all controlled by AI or voice to skull technology. And that person, from their perspective, would perhaps be correct in making that assumption. But
Mhm.
until that person has touched the fifth dimension himself or herself, that person isn't going to be able to make sense of what the fifth dimension is, because you can't do it from the third dimensional perspective, if that makes any sense. You
Mhm.
have to go to the 5D and take a multidimensional viewpoint. And only when you get that as knowing, within you, you create a paradigm. That paradigm becomes reality. So
Mhm.
if one person is thinking, oh my goodness me, 5D must be a cabal controlled structure, they're creating that reality for them, and they will see proof around them to validate that belief system. They will find proof that validates the fact that the fifth dimension is a controlled structure by the cabal. But if you go, because that's the reality you're creating,
Mhm.
you'll actually start to create synchronicity that will lead you to validation of that. Because the reason why that happens is you've hooked into the negative, polarized higher intelligence, if you like, which will then hijack your system and lead you further and further into that negative reality. You've got the higher guides that are positive around you the whole time, and they're always trying to guide you, or that positive aspect within your DNA is always trying to lead you the way. But if your belief system, if you're continually reinforcing your belief system by saying this is a cabal controlled structure, and you're controlling it by your behaviors, your actions, the people that you mix with, the foods you eat, the television programs you watch, the music you listen to, if you are compacting it all, you're caught within a negative reality, hijacked by that negative AI, if you like, and you are constantly manifesting more of the same. The way to move away from that is to find the knowing. The fifth dimension is a dimensional reality that the star seeds, the light workers are creating through their emotions of love, unconditional love, joy, bliss, togetherness, unity. It is a dimension that is part of our evolution back to unity. When we know that, not just believe it, when we know that, we create the paradigm, and then our reality continues to reinforce that because we're creating it. So the thing is, it becomes real. It's not a case of, is this real or is this not real? They're both true. Both of these realities are true. It's up to you as to which one you take as your paradigm. That then becomes your reality. And that's the kind of core message, really. You know, because there's all these different futures, there's all these different timelines, there's all these different planets, there's all these different realities, there's all these different dimensions and different harmonics within the dimensions. And where you go, your emotional state and your knowing and your paradigm are coordinates. And those coordinates take you to the trajectory that you wish to experience. And that's happening all the time around you in everything you do. So surround yourself with the people and the music and the food you eat. And it's really about your intention, your heart. You know, you can't slip up. It's about being a good person. That's all it's about. You can't slip up when you are taking that knowledge within the third dimension and making sense of this in a multidimensional way. So I hope that's kind of made sense.
I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it. I started to feel like I was drifting off into a dreamy space when you were talking that way, because I love, I'm feeling the higher energy. And, for me, I love to be in that higher energy. Huh? I'm sorry. What did you say?
That's good because I said that's good because this kind of communication is not just about words. It goes beyond words into this frequency, and you get to the point where you don't even have to listen to the words. It's a feeling, because everything is going in as a code into the body, into the matrix, into the DNA, and then that begins to process in your way. So you go away. After we've been talking, I go away. Everyone who's listening to this conversation goes away. And then the information that's come through has come through in a code, a coded form. And then it starts to process, because as the nine always repeatedly tell me, the way you process this information is right, because that's the information that's going to create this paradigm and this trajectory and this reality. So it's your processing. All I'm doing here when I speak is passing codes. You're collecting those codes into you, making sense of the codes, and then drawing them up. And that's the whole Kundalini, raising up above the head, activating the pineal gland, the memory, the DNA, and you're processing. That is the truth of reality. Not what I'm saying or what the nine are saying or what you and I are saying. It's the individual person and their processing. But it must be done with the intention of purity, unconditional love, humility, wanting to help others, service to others, releasing of trauma. It's got to be done in this state, because if you aren't in that clarity, that state, you can get the traumas and the issues muddled up with the paradigm and the processing, and then that's when you go into a state that is a mixed vibration, and it can be confusion. So number one, if you don't understand a word I'm saying right now, that's absolutely fine. Number one is to deal with what's going on with you. Take it all subjective. And maybe if you've got traumas and issues, don't worry about researching and frantically finding out where the truth is and what's going on with the government. Go inward and look at your traumas, look at your past, maybe whatever it may be, counseling or past life regression therapy or meditation, whatever you want to do. Work on yourself until you come to a place where there is, and I'm not saying you're going to be 100% clear, because that's not really fully possible in a third dimensional reality, because we move in and out of that. We're constantly gathering more in and then processing that and then gathering more in. So a trauma might come in, we might get some karma come in, and we have to process that and unravel it and work through it and come back to clarity. It's a never-ending journey. But when you get to the place where you are, you can find clarity. You can find this place where you are clear enough to be able to be open to all these different belief systems and paradigms and realities, and you can work through any negative triggering, and you can still open your heart. Because how difficult is it to look at this reality and look at the confusion and the chaos and the things that are going on. I saw a comment on YouTube the other day. Somebody had written a comment to a video. People were talking just like you and me. Two spiritual teachers were chatting away like you and me. And every so often they were laughing. They were going, while they were talking about the horrors of whatever was going on. And somebody wrote, what I don't understand is all the giggling and all the joy when this is a really awful negative situation. What I would say there is, it's essential to find the giggling and the joy. You cannot find the truth, because if you are buried in this sadness, in this shock, in this horror of these atrocities, which are all real, and I know how real they are, and they are awful, I know, but if you bury yourself there, how can you raise the vibration into the higher dimensions to be able to create the trajectory and the paradigm you need to draw the reality to you? How can you do that without the raise of the vibration? So
that is, wow, totally right on. That is a great, that's a great point.
Wow.
And what a beautiful way to kind of, encapsulate this whole talk we've had. I was going to bring up the two Earth split again, but we did talk about that in our last show that we did together, which was great and got so much great feedback on that show. And I'm just so pleased to have you here with me and with all of our beautiful listeners, and just so excited that we got to be together on this very special day and special time at the Equinox. And, I just feel everything you said, it just really resonates with me. And there is very much something about your presence and the presence of your guides, the nine, that brings a sense of peace to so many of us that are followers of your work. And I just want to say on behalf of all of us, a huge thank you to you and the nine for doing all the work that you do. I mean, you're so prodigious. There's so much you're putting out there. Every time I want to look up something, there's always a great video that you have about 500 or more videos, and you're always doing more interviews. And I just think that you're an amazing person, and I'm so grateful that we have you here with us.
Thank you. You're making me cry. No, thank you. That's so nice, and it's lovely. And I do get lots of people write to me to say thank you for the work. And honestly, I can't reply to everyone, because I'd love to, but I can't, because I get so many emails. But I just want to say it means so much to me that people feel like that, because when I started my YouTube channel, it was just a kind of I didn't know what I was doing, really. I mean, it was just an experiment. It was never a plan. And I now look back and realize that my whole life, obviously I was supposed to be doing this, and this is my mission. And it's, and sometimes you do doubt, and sometimes I think, oh, goodness me, am I, that whole thing you were talking about earlier about I've had a healing issue. And, sometimes I'll say to the nine, how can I be a spiritual teacher or a spiritual leader in some way if I have got, issues of my own and health issues of my own? And this is when they said all natural healers take a personal healing journey. And what people don't want is to listen to somebody who's kind of, got it and they're there and everything's great and they've got perfect health and loads of money and they are just so full on with their enlightenment, it actually makes you far away. And I'm not far away. I'm the same as everyone else. I've got my, the same challenges, the same issues. I'm just no different to any other person. And so it's so nice when you say thank you and everything. So thank you for asking me to come back. I thought we had a lovely talk last time. So yes, really nice. And we've gone way over what we said we would.
I know. But gosh, it was great talking to you. And if you have any more time, I would love to have a few minutes with you to talk about my own, like you had offered.
I will.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
we'll have a chat.
But as we're coming to a close, I mean, you've said so many beautiful things, and I feel this has really been a great heart connection. And is there anything else? Is there any closing words that you'd like to share with our listeners for today?
Well, all I can say is there are some really exciting things on the horizon. When I say exciting things, I'm talking about, on the one hand, energy frequencies, being able to sense the energy frequencies of the rays of this planet, the ascension of Gaia, and also the telepathy between the star seeds getting stronger and stronger, creating some really high frequencies, which are exciting and lovely. And they will create insight and downloads when we connect with other star seeds and we connect with Gaia and the other planetary systems. We're going galactic. So that's all exciting. But what I also mean by exciting is the revealing of truth. The things that have been hidden from us for so many years, the control structure dismantling, falling apart, and the revealing of what's really going on. And what a lot of people want is for the world to know. We're kind of in our little bubble of the truther community, the UFO community, the starseed community, the spiritual community. And we're in this ever increasing bubble. But what a lot of us want is for the world to know about what's been going on and how much we've all been trying to help everyone while they've been oblivious to what's going on, carrying on with their life, sort of, just sort of going off on holiday and watching TV and getting their hair done without realizing that we've got this huge kind of spiritual war, if you like. I don't like using the word war, but you know what I mean. We've got this thing going on that no one knows about. What's exciting is I'm not saying the whole world is going to be made aware sort of in the next week. So that's not what I'm saying. But there are certain chunks of being revealed that will trigger all sorts of things coming for the rest of this year. And some of these things are quite big. Things that, even with the starseeds who are aware of everything, even the starseeds can be surprised, so I can see them thinking, wow, I didn't think that would happen, so there are surprises on the horizon that we're pleased about. We're not pleased about the atrocities. We're pleased that the truth is coming out and more starseeds are taking their place in delivering this truth. So that's coming. And I had this insight last night in the astral projection dream state. Social media, there's changes going on, big changes there. That's why I say earlier, be aware that the people are the ones that are in control, not the corporations. And if we decide en masse to leave one social media platform and go off to another more independent, more spiritual one, be aware to do that, because that's a potential. There's also a financial thing coming, I feel, a financial crash down or collapse in some way. What came through in my dream, in an astral projection, remote viewing type of dream, what came through was a nosedive. What the nosedive was referring to is an investment of some kind. So investment, and I'm feeling it's potentially something like shares or stock market. I'm really not very clued up on that. I don't really know much about it, but there were lots of people losing money through this particular investment. But what I was shown is this also the investment may not necessarily be literal finances, although I do feel that it is that. But there's also an emotional investment, because in the dream, all these people were upset because they were with their sort of designer label clothing and Gucci handbags and sort of expensive sort of shoes, and
Mm-hmm.
that was like a metaphor that they were upset that they couldn't have those things.
Mm.
And I think that what the metaphors within the dream were saying to me is there's an emotional investment in financial security. And if you've invested a huge amount of emotion in financial security, what is coming will shake that emotional investment. Then I was
Mm.
drawn back to the star seeds, and the star seeds were all smiling and laughing, and they were fine. They hadn't lost any finances, they hadn't lost any emotional investment, because they weren't invested in these things. And I saw all these
Mm.
star seeds going into charity shops, which are called thrift stores in
Yeah.
America,
Mm-hmm.
and they were just as happy to be there than they were in these. I'm not saying don't buy a Gucci handbag, I'm not saying that. I'm saying don't invest your emotions into things that are quite meaningless, really, when it comes to finances. Invest your emotions in the multidimensional, the spiritual, the ascension timeline. So what I saw was a financial issue that was affecting finances and emotions taking a nosedive, something to do with investment and stocks and shares, and it wasn't affecting the starseeds, and it was coming. So
Good.
I haven't really processed and analyzed it fully. It was last night's dream, but when I woke up I thought, well, it's funny I'm talking to you today.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered, when you said, is there anything else you want to say? I think I should mention my dream. So there
That's
you go.
that's interesting, and it makes me think, should I that maybe the money that I have in stocks will be safe because I'm a star seed. Like
You
I
know, I don't know anything about stocks or shares, but yet the star seeds were fine. They weren't laughing at the other people. They
right.
thought it was awful, but
Mm-hmm.
they were smiling because they knew this had to happen, because
Mm-hmm.
it's part of the collapse in order to create the new. Every time we
Sure.
see something collapsing,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's the financial, communities on our planet, it's part of the regrowth. It's part of the collapsing of the old and the rebirthing of the new. It has to happen. So the starseeds are happy because it's a sign that something's happening to do with the ascension timeline and the
Right.
new world. So
Sh- I love that, actually. I mean, there's a part of me that fears loss of money, but the other way, I would like for everything to be more equal. It doesn't make sense that some people should have all this money and then others are homeless on the street with nothing. So
yes,
this paradigm, just like the paradigm of marriage,
yes,
it doesn't really fit who we're
no,
moving. The kind of the organic human template.
exactly.
So bring it on. I guess, it will all be taken care of, because you know what? Something's going to happen. If the money ends up crashing, then maybe it'll come to where schools don't cost so much. Here in the United States, to go to
Yeah.
college, university costs a lot.
Yes, nothing is a crash
Yeah.
down and a complete and utter crash down. It
Hmm.
stays there. Everything that collapses will regrow in a new
Hmm.
form. But the star seeds are the ones, the light workers, the truthers, the aware ones, they're the ones that can see this. The
Yeah.
people who aren't there in that expansive understanding are only seeing the third dimension, which is why it's such a it can be absolute fear and
Hmm.
horror, because they can't see what's coming next. They can't see the regrowth, and it's about faith, because it's
Yeah.
not tangible. So there has to be faith there.
Right.
Not blind faith, not
Hmm.
blind faith without any kind of meaningful subjective awareness. But the starseeds have the meaningful subjective awareness because they've been training for this from the day they were born. So they're ready.
Yeah.
That's why they incarnated. That's why they incarnated here, to do this mission, to help the
That's right.
humans. Because
Hmm.
well, not that we're not human, but to help the inhabitants of the third dimension. They
Right.
came down from
Hmm.
the higher dimensions to help the inhabitants of the third dimension, because they called for it. There has to be a call. The
Hmm.
higher dimensional beings cannot come in and assist because of free will, etiquette, and
Hmm.
boundaries. There was a call. The third dimensional individuals together made a call, and that translates as, for goodness sake, help us.
Hmm.
Then we came in droves. That's why the starseeds are here, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And they are doing, as I said, really well.
Yay. Um,
Yeah.
it just, it's, and I know that we, even if we can't convince somebody, somebody that's very 3D, we might feel like we can't get through to them, excuse me, and reassure them that we're
Mm,
all one and that I am you, and that if you're hating on this person, that you're really hating yourself, and you have to. I think that we have to know that just doing the work internally with
yes.
ourselves is
Yeah.
creating a ripple effect.
Yes, because you can't convince someone else.
Hmm.
It's their subjective reality. I mean, I recently spoke to somebody who is recently bereaved, and saying to that person something like, "Well, there's no such thing as death. Life goes on, and everything's wonderful. Just feel love." That's not going to help that person who's bereaved
No.
in the slightest. That's not what they want to hear. What's going to help them is, "Oh my goodness me, that's so dreadful. I can't imagine how you must be feeling. Can I help in some way?
Right.
Would you like a hug? Shall I buy you a present? Whatever." You can't. So you can't start
Hmm.
talking about multidimensional truths and the afterlife and everything to someone who is third dimensionally um, thinking in a third dimensional way, and has recently been
Hmm.
bereaved, or is suffering in some other way. You must work with that person's own individual reality. And as you say, as you work on the self, and as we work on the self together collectively as a huge starseed group, that's filtering through, so that synchronicity does come to those people in the end. And it may well be that the bereavement is what turned them to looking into the next dimension and looking into the afterlife, but they must come to it on their own. I must say, on that level, the mediums are doing a really good job, because they're working with the fourth dimension, and you can have third dimensionally thinking people who aren't able to perhaps look at a multi-dimensional reality when it comes to the fifth dimension, of
Hmm.
form and angels and unicorns, or the rainbow bridge, and they're not able to look into the geometry of the sixth dimension and look at the Merkaba, but they can go see a medium who
Hmm.
might or might not bring through their auntie. And that's a fantastic job, because that's a step, because that's a fourth dimension. So, you can't expect a lot of people to shoot right up to 5D.
Uh-huh.
They're going into the fourth dimensional, and that's where you have religions, and that's where you have medium work. And they're doing a fantastic job at the moment, and they're really becoming quite mainstream. I mean,
Hmm.
a lot of my friends, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but here in the UK, a lot of my friends who are what I would think is totally 3D, they are going to see mediums. So they are becoming aware of, which is great. So throw that in.
You just
We'll just
started to,
talk forever.
I
I have
know
to
we
stop
keep
talking now.
you started to cut up. Sometimes the audio is getting a
Okay.
little funny, but um, I agree. And there's a show called in the United States called Long Island Medium or Long Island Psychic or something, and it's
Yeah.
just so funny. So it is
Yeah.
becoming very mainstream,
It
and
is.
and
Yeah.
thank
Which is
God,
good, isn't it? Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great. If I I think we do have to bring it to a close because we just love
Yeah.
talking, and I feel like we're
Yes.
friends, so I'm really enjoying
Yes.
it. But so to bring this to a close, I would just like to say that it sounds like we really do have a lot of good things to look forward to. We just have to keep our eyes on the prize, like the nine
Yeah.
have said, and keep imagining our best, highest self and the highest timeline for all.
Yes.
And I think that meditation and there's so many great tools that we laid out in the show today, and I'm just so thankful to you. For your website, if people want to look into you or find out about your books, they would go to magentapixie.com.
Yes.
Okay,
Magentapixie.com. Yes.
and that just to show people again the book here with my little Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template. It is a great book, and I will be reading the section about twin flames shortly after this. So, well, I'd love to have you back on the show in the future when you have time, maybe in another couple of months. We can
Yeah.
do this again. That would be
Yes.
great. So, I'd just like to say to everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you have a wonderful spring and happy equinox. And just keep your eye on the prize and keep doing what you're doing, because, I feel so good just having you here, because I just feel so relaxed. I'm like, all right, we're on the right path and everything's going along. So,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Magenta Pixie. It was beautiful being with you. Much love to you, and much love to all of our viewers and our listeners today. We love you.
Much love.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
We are now at a time in our planetary evolution known as ascension. Those individuals we can call starseeds are currently in their millions and are collectively going through this awakening process. In this book, the 9 bring forward memory triggers designed to act as a catalyst into the awakening process. They present a model of working with the individualized matrix field, known also as the Merkaba, through matrix architecture, Merkaba magic, and the golden triad of ascension, presenting an in-depth analysis and explanation of the twin flame consciousness and how this relates to the ascension, as well as providing triggers to the collective memory experience known as Atlantis. This transmission is designed to trigger your multidimensional memory as you begin the construction of the Merkaba matrix and embrace the inner archetype of the architect. The triggers contained within this material are there to assist you in accessing the codes for the new formation of the original crystalline DNA matrix. I, Magenta Pixie, am so happy to present this transmission to you from the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of 9. Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template.